One of my all-time favorite characters is the Billy Batson Captain Marvel. With his movie being released soon, it might be out by the time this comes out, I wanted to honor the character's legacy in some way. In 2016, I did a Superman retrospective and gave a personal list of his best comic book stories of the last 25 years. So now for the Billy Batson Captain Marvel, I want to do the same thing. The only difference here is I'll reach further back than just 25 years. And also I won't just focus on comic books, but other media as well. The reason for that is simple. People unfortunately just don't read comic books anymore. They just consume other media about them. One last thing before I begin. Keep in mind this is only my personal list. If you have a difference of opinion, then please comment below, but please keep it classy and civil. Also, these aren't in any particular order except for the last two. So let's begin. SHAZAM, the 1981 cartoon. I remember as a kid thinking that this show was pretty random. My vague memories of the show are of people in uncomfortable positions and Captain Marvel just standing around. I decided to take a look at the first episode and wow. We get an Uncle Dudley who sounds like a cross between W.C. Fields and Snagglepuss.
Let an expert handle this.
Would you like to engage in a little game of cut? The higher card wins.
Uncle Dudley, are you an expert on UFOs too?
Am I? My dear boy, haven't I told you the time?
So exit. Stage left.
Black Adam turning Captain Marvel Jr. into a dog just for yucks. And a Captain Marvel that sounds like the 1960s Spider-Man, meaning he sounded like a 45-year-old accounting executive.
It seems I've heard that song before.
I really need to rewatch this entire series. Hopefully it's available on the DC streaming service. The show wasn't successful, only running on NBC from September 12, 1981 to September 11, 1982, and only had 12 episodes. It was part of the Kid Superpower Hour with Shazam.
Shazam!
Kingdom Come is a story that takes place years in the future after superheroes like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman have retired. The reason was because of the rise of darker superheroes led by a new one called Magog. After a catastrophic event in the Midwest, Superman gets the band back together again to put an end to this dark age of heroes. They also have to combat a new group of supervillains as well, some of which are old-timers like Catwoman, Riddler, and Vandal Savage, and some are just some new kids on the block. They call themselves the MLF. No, not the Mutant Liberation Front, that's Marvel, but Mankind Liberation Front. How did Marvel not sue DC over this? Kingdom Come is a great story from beginning to end. I didn't realize it at the time, but I do now. But this was the response to the early 80s dark age of comic books. So this is a Superman story, right? So where does Captain Marvel fit in? He's being controlled by someone. Who? That would be spoilers, but let's just say he's used as insurance against Superman because 1, he's as powerful as Superman, and 2, the whole Superman being weak to magic thing. Billy's part in this story is tragic. It's good to see him here, but it's not really as a hero until maybe the end. You just need to see that. How his story finishes here is very bittersweet. I was thinking about putting this with the honorable mentions because while he plays a big role in the second half, it's really not about him. It's primarily a Superman story, but like I said, he does play a significant part of this, so I left it in.
Shazam!
SHAZAM, the Monster Society of Evil. Let's say you have kids and after seeing the movie in early April, they want to see more of the good captain. Well, this is the perfect series for them. Written and drawn by creator Jeff Smith. This is another origin story about Billy Batson, but once again, it's been tweaked. One difference here is when Billy turns to Captain Marvel, it's not a boy's mind in the body of an adult. The captain is his own person with his own personality. Shortly into the story, the captain and Shazam not only find out that Billy has a little sister that he needs to find, they also find out about the titular Monster Society of Evil, which is led by the devious Mr. Mind, who's usually a super intelligent, world-conquering caterpillar, except here he's a super intelligent snake who wants to take over the world. But it's okay because Billy gets help from a magical talking tiger named Talkie Tawny. God, I love comics. I can't really explain well how I feel about this miniseries. It's heartwarming, exciting, creative, it has great writing and amazing art. It's just so much fun. My only problem with the story is there was never a sequel to this. Yes, there was a 21-issue series that came out a year later, but it wasn't by Jeff Smith and didn't have the energy or fun that this did. Considering the current state of the character, I just wish this version of the character would come back.
Shazam!
Justice League Unlimited Clash. This was probably a lot of people's first experience of Captain Marvel, and this episode nailed the character just right. We first see him being heroic, then we see him being inducted into the Justice League. Everything goes downhill from there for Billy and Clark though. This episode reminds me of the phrase of never meet your heroes because they won't be what you built them up to be. The only negative here is that this is a done-in-one episode as far as the captain is concerned. He comes in, does his thing, and then he's gone from the series. This episode helps push the narrative of the villains that was going on at the time, but it would have been nice if Captain Marvel had more episodes in the series. I don't believe he ever came back. If he did, it probably was in the background or as a supporting role. Admittedly, it's been years since I've seen the series though. Superman Shazam, The Return of Black Adam. Hey, a DC animated film that's not solely based on either Superman or Batman? Oh wait, Superman's in it too. My bad. Also, this isn't a full film, it's more of a short film at about 25 minutes. I wish I had known about that when I bought this years ago. Still, this is a good representation of the character. Within the first 2 minutes, you get a handle on Billy's character. He's upbeat and positive despite his current situation and will stand up to anyone in need. It also introduces his main villain, and we also get to see how he interacts with Superman. For a short film, it's pretty good. I see this movie as a good Cliff Notes version of getting to know the good captain.
Are you for real? Say, okay! Shazam?
Shazam, the 1973 comic series. It's the character's triumphant return after disappearing for 20 years. This time being published by DC Comics. What's interesting about the series is that the look and tone was the same as it was in the 1940s and 50s. Goofy, campy, and made more for really young kids. At least that's at the start of its run. It kept its light tone until issues 34 and 35, the last issues of the series. Looking at the comics of the 70s, the Shazam one was an anomaly. In the 70s, comics were getting more mature and serious. It aiming for a younger demographic sounds good, but by that point, the comic book reader was aging up, not down. I can't find any numbers, but it seems this series didn't do well. It ran from 1973 to 1978 and was bi-monthly. Even with the popularity of the live action show, it doesn't seem that helped the comics any. That's true even today. An example would be Captain America Civil War. It made over $1 billion, but the Captain America comics struggled to sell 300,000 copies a year. In the 70s, it sold that in a month. Still, because of this series, it was able to get the character back into the forefront. This led to both his TV series and eventually being inducted into the Justice League.
Speak the word.
Shazam!
The Shazam and Isis Hour. 1 year after the triumphant return of the Good Captain comic books, a live-action series was created for him and ran on CBS from 1974 to 1977. It followed a teenage, Billy traveling with a man named Mentor across the country, helping people along the way. My first experience of the show was in the early 80s in syndication. From the 1980s to the 90s, if a show even had just one season, it would have been shown in syndication. The show was a bit low rent and campy, but there is a good fun to be had here. Also, I believe in season 3, there was a crossover with Isis from the Mighty Isis show.
Hey there, what's up? Shazam.
Young Justice Misplaced. This appears to be a very loose adaptation of the comic book Justice League of America World Without Grown-Ups miniseries from 1998. Clarin the Witch Boy, along with the villains, the Wizard, Felix Faust, Wanton, and Blackbriar Thorn, does a spell that creates an alternate Earth, one that has only kids under 18 years of age, and the other Earth has only adults. While Billy and Captain Marvel are supporting players in this episode, I still think he plays a huge role in that he can blink in between both worlds and was able to get one of the crystals in the episode. What I really liked about this episode, Captain Marvel-wise, was it showed just how resourceful Billy was. The good captain was a supporting player previously in the series, so it was good to see him take a more active role in this episode. I could be wrong, but the voice of Billy here seems to be the same as the Superman Shazam Return of Black Adam short movie.
Shazam!
Shazam! The Power of Hope. From 1998 to 2003, DC Comics put out 6 tabloid-sized comic books co-written by Paul Dini and painted by Alex Ross. They were Superman Peace on Earth, Batman War on Crime, Wonder Woman Spirit of Truth, Shazam Power of Hope, Justice League Secret Origins, and Justice League Justice. Each in the collection focused on a single defining trait of each character. I know it's cliche to say, but this story shows just the kind of hero Billy Batson is as Captain Marvel or just as himself. We see him save people and battle giant robots, but then we see him giving joy and hope by just being himself and doing the right thing. For example, Billy, just by talking and listening to an obviously abused boy, helps him open up. There's a lot I want to say about this book, the amazing art and writing and everything, but I don't want to get too emotional, and maybe I'll do a review on it at some time in the future. I will say that you can sum up the story and Captain Marvel with this quote from the book: frustration, triumph, despair, and joy. The memories of those and 1,000 other childhood experiences stay with me as Billy Batson and as Captain Marvel. It makes it easy for me to relate to children. Okay, before I get to number 1, let me just talk about some honorable mentions. The Captain Marvel movie serials from 1941. The Good Captain was the first superhero to appear in movies, if you don't count Zorro or comic strip adaptations. He had a 12-part series named The Adventures of Captain Marvel that ran through 1941, a little over a year after he was first introduced in Whiz Comics issue 2 in 1940. Looking back, it's not that bad. I can see why people would enjoy it. Seeing the Captain fighting against oversized scorpions and such. It seems it was so well received that it helped sales of the comic book. Side note, I do find it funny that for the flying scenes, instead of wiring up the actor, they used a 7-foot-long papier-mâché version of him instead. Batman and Superman Public Enemies from 2009. The Good Captain appears here, but it's mostly an extended cameo. We do get to see his power and cleverness. I also like the fact that he states that Superman is weak against magic here. Why do so many readers and writers of the character seem to forget that? Shazam and the New 52, first appearing in Justice League comic book as a backup feature in 2012 to 2013. At the time, I liked the story mostly because of the Gary Frank art. Inclusion of the other orphans and having them take major roles is good, but I didn't like the fact that they became the extended Marvel family. I didn't mind Billy's attitude too much in the series because he seemed like a realistic 15-year-old boy. My main issue with the series was that now Captain Marvel was no longer Captain Marvel, but was now named Shazam, as in after the wizard, as in the word that Billy has to say to transform and back. Good God, that's so stupid. From that point on, in all media, he would soon be known as only Shazam. Just imagine Stan Lee with Gary Frank creating Shazam in 2002. Hey, you want to see weird? Well then, let's just take a gander in the early 2000s when DC Comics gave Stan Lee a chance to reimagine certain DC characters in his own universe. So, what did his take on the Good Captain entail? Well, let's see. We get to see Merlin, Morgana, a trip to Nepal, a cult with a woman apparently doing her best David Bowie impersonation, assassins, and a big red beastie thing tagging along a big boobed woman. I have no words for this. The concept and execution of the story is bonkers. Then again, the entire Just Imagine line was crazy. I think Stan missed the point on what makes Billy Batson and Captain Marvel a great character in this issue. Also, Billy Batson isn't even Captain Marvel in the main story. I don't even think he's in that story at all. Wiz Comics issue 2. Might as well start with his very first appearance. Maybe I should do a review of it someday. It's only 15 pages long if you include the cover. The story gets straight to the point. It's the basis of every redo of his origin from the 1940s on. That said, while the original origin is interesting, it's not what I consider a very engaging comic. If I had a choice to reread the 1995 version of his origin or the 2012 for fun, I would, over rereading was issue number 2. The original origin is just a bit too dry and basic for me to want to go back and read it over again and again. And finally, the number 1 greatest Captain Marvel story.
Hero's got nothing to say. Come on, say something, I dare you. Come on, just one word.
The Power of Shazam graphic novel from 1994 and the Power of Shazam ongoing series a year later in 1995. It was these 2 stories that made me the fan of Captain Marvel that I am today. While he did appear before here, he was in the Wahaha Justice League of the late 80s, early 90s. This was, I believe, his first ongoing series since the 1970s. This completely revamped his origin and was his definitive origin until Jeff Johns retconned it in the New 52. Anyway, the art in the graphic novel had a very painterly, pulpy feel. Initially, when I read the graphic novel, I thought this took place in its own reality because the designs of the book had a 1930s to 40s feel to it. The graphic novel plays out his commonly known origin but adds some tweaks to it. We see the introduction of some future villains, and a mysteriously shadowed individual is tasked by Shazam to guide Billy on his journey. The graphic novel is a great introduction for anyone who's interested in learning more of the good captain. The only negative possibly is that while I like the art, the current generation of comic reader may find it too dated. Also, looking back on it now, it's pretty obvious who the mysterious individual was. The ongoing series that followed a year later is a continuation of the graphic novel. Visually, the pulp style is still present but minus the paint strokes. Because of this, the art looks more simplified and a bit more conventional. The first issue does end with a bang with a fire, Billy using his powers irresponsibly, still needing to find his sister, and Shazam punishes Billy. This is a great series to read to get to know the character. The original graphic novel is available in print and digital at comiXology.com. Unfortunately, none of the issues of the ongoing series are available in paperback, but you can also read them digitally at comiXology.com. A side note, I find it interesting that on the cover of issue 1, it has Captain Marvel's name on the cover. Per the copyright with Marvel Comics, DC Comics Club got sued for that. Oh well, it doesn't matter anymore. He's only called Shazam these days. Not by me though. That's still a stupid name to call him. Well, I hope you really liked this video. If you did or didn't, just please comment below. And if you did like it, share the video and click like and subscribe to the channel. Also, one more thing before I go. With his movie coming up, I really wanted to do something special for him. A couple of years ago in 2016, for the Batman vs. Superman movie, I did a month-long retrospective of Superman. Well, that took a lot out of me, and by the end I was puttering out. I plan to do the same thing with Captain Marvel, but it's not going to be over a month time. I'm going to take my time with this. There's going to be new videos on the retrospective every now and then, hopefully every month or so. So be on the lookout for that. And until my next video, have a good day.